Tēnā tātou e te whānau. Over the next few months, the stunning bunch of Rangatahi will be helping out with Te Ranga Tupua Iwi response.
This COVID thing is pretty hard out, and it's having an impact on our lives, just like everyone else's.
So we want to know what you want to know about COVID in general and the vaccinations. And to find out the answers to your questions, Tonga and I will be hosting a live Q&A with Uncle Che and this guy, Dr. Raviri Jensen.
I'm pretty sure I didn't have to do that, because last time I heard, Luffle was doing that.
We'll do it next time, straight up, promise.
The Q&A live stream session will be on the Tuku Storytelling Studio page, where you can watch at 8 PM Thursday the 30th of September.
And so, over the next few days, we'll be using our socials to ask what questions you have to ask us, or you can send a message to the Tuku page.
COVID is a touchy kaupapa and we know there are a lot of strong views about it. But as rangatahi, we need the space to be able to ask legit questions and make the important decisions we need to.
So please, Wano, please be nice to us, okay? We're trying our best.
Catch you all on Thursday night with Uncle Che and Dr. Rawiri. Peace.
Tēnā tātou e te whānau. Welcome to our Rangatahi Takeover live Q&A session with Uncle Che and Dr. Rawiri Jensen. My name is Sophia Unga and this is...
Taonga Potaro's Wonwhanariri.
The gift that keeps on giving. So, we're new to this. So, this is our first time live streaming pretty much anything that isn't dumb stuff. Or sports, yes, you might have seen us on live streams for sports. Tonight, what are we doing? We are introducing our guests. And our guests tonight are...
Dr. Rawiri Jensen and Uncle Che Wilson, but most people would know him as just Che Wilson.
Or Hene Rauamoa and Tikanawa's dad.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. So, magically, they're going to appear soon. Oh,
there's one. There's the other.
So these are our special guests for the night. The main reason we invited Matua Rawiri Jensen, Doctor, I feel so privileged to call him Doctor, I feel so smart, is because, so we did a bit of stalking, Matua.
If that's all right.
Yeah, if that's okay. We know that you're a renowned Māori health advocate. Apparently, you've been awarded with the Distinguished Fellowship of the Royal New Zealand College of General Practitioners Award. That must be really important because there was a lot of words, English words too. And apparently, you're the clinical director of the National Hauora Coalition. So, big stuff. So, that's our Matua Rawiri, Dr. Rawiri.
Kia ora, kia ora, kia ora. Thanks for having me.
And then we've got Uncle Che, who we are clout chasing off. So,
followers and information.
Yeah. But sometimes Uncle Che can be pretty onto it, so that's why he's here tonight. Hey, Uncle.
Tēnā korua, kia ora koutou. Lucky I love you, eh, Sophia?
Well, before we begin anything with our live Q&A session, Uncle Che, could you please tukururaku for us?
Okay. Ka pai. Tēnā tātou. Kei te rangatira Rawiri mi ana ki a koe. O tira koutou mātaki mai ana, kia ora katoa tātou. Mai a maranga wakarangona te rangi e tūnei, mai a maranga wakarangona te papa e takotake nei. Mai a reare o ka tupua anuku, mai a reare o ka tupua rangi, e ue nei ki te pau kōrero e tūnei. Turuturu au iti waka maua ki a tīnā, tīnā. Taiki.
All right, ngā mihi, Uncle Che.
So, Dr. Rawiri, could you be able to tell us why you're the real doctor? Because, you know, most people, or most rangatahi might not know about you. So could you please tell us why you are a real doctor and why you're the man to talk about COVID and about all that kaupapa?
we got, how many hours have we got? I'll be really brief. I started med school in 1980 down in Dunedin, and I got kicked out of Otago University. There's a flagpole that got involved in that, chopped that down, and in the end I went and trained as a school teacher, and I did that because I did years as an activist and protester, and then eventually I went back to med school. So I went to Auckland. They had me back. Otago won't have me back on band. And so I finished in year 2000. So that's a 20-year journey to get my medical degree. And, there's a whole lot of protesting activism shit in there as well. And then it's all I ever wanted to do was be a GP, and I love it. And I still do it today. One day a week I'm at Rangaiti Marae now down in Waharoa. And I'm really passionate about trying to overcome the kind of health statistics that we see a lot of, and I'm particularly interested in preventing acute rheumatic fever, so I lead some programs around that. And COVID is just, something that's kind of very significant threat to our community, so been really busy on that for about 18 months. And but this is the first Rangatahi show, so deadly, thank you.
We've heard it there, whānau. Matua Rawiri, Dr. Rawiri is, qualified. He even got kicked out of uni to be a doctor. I've never met a doctor that's had to be kicked out of uni to be a doctor, but that's cool as. So, no mind, Matua.
The junior 20 years must have been hard.
Have you ever burnt a couch?
No, I wasn't into that kind of shit down in Dunedin. We were doing protests like non-stop. Māori land, Māori language, nuclear-free independent Pacific, the Truxton when there was nuclear ships used to come to New Zealand, Aotearoa. So we're doing those kind of protests, and then, it just carried on from then, even recently up here with, the land occupation stuff that we've got on now out at Waiheke, and we've just recently finished it over there at Te Ihu Mātao. So, it's a lifelong thing. It's just, we've got to keep battling. And you know what? Let's segue into talking about COVID, because that's what it's about. This battle has been going on forever, and we want to protect our whakapapa. We want to protect our community. We want to protect our future. Then we've got to be engaged. We've got to see something about COVID and how come this shit's happening to us, and how come we're the last ones to get vaccinated. What's that about, government? It's not equity if we get it last. It's just not.
All right, Uncle Che, we have a major question for you. Do you scrunch or fold?
I fold. You waste too much paper and pollute the waterways if you scrunch.
Dr. Rawiri, do you scrunch or fold?
Man, what he said. You got to fold. Come on, people. Come on, people.
All right, well, before we actually get into the real serious COVID and vaccination questions, we wanted to do a few digital icebreakers with you. So we're going to ask you a couple questions, and then we'll play a little game at the end before we get into the real serious stuff. So you got us?
Bye.
Maybe you should ask the questions because
Tonga doesn't even know them.
I come up with the funny answers.
Well, because Tonga was set up by Lafo.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
I watched the promo.
What's that about?
It actually
Ruffle?
did stitch me up too.
All right. Well, one of our questions, Dr. Rawiri, if you were to be a character on Shoreline Street, who would you be?
I don't know much about Shoreline Street, but it's got to be Dr. Ropata, doesn't it? That's it. It's the only person I've ever seen, man. That's it. Yep. That's me.
And Uncle Che, who would you be on Shoreline Street?
I wouldn't have a clue. I haven't watched it for years. I used to have hair like Chris Warner.
Now he'll be on Dr. TK.
Oh, Tonga reckons you'd be TK.
Yeah, I've got muscles like him, so.
The physique for it.
Yeah, with the stepson that's a drug dealer.
True.
And our last little activity is a 5-word association game. So me and Tonga will give you an example, and then we'll play this game with you. So I'm going to give Tonga some categories or topics, and he's just going to give me the first word that comes to mind. So, ready?
No, but yep, go.
Food.
Mac and cheese.
Sport.
Basketball.
Colour.
Purple.
Song.
You will always be my baby from right here.
Oh.
I don't know why that popped up. But
Are you all good? And a country.
New Way.
Okay, tough one, bro. I really thought you were going to say New Zealand.
Oh, it's the first.
Wow.
It's the first.
Aotearoa.
I think.
All right, we'll go with you, Uncle Che. You give Uncle Che some kettle.
Be nice, because none of Vera's watching. I just seen her comment.
Okay, we'll keep it good. Food.
Kaimwana.
Song.
Always be my baby.
Yeah. Pants.
Trekkies.
Nice. Mentor.
Oh, Uncle Archie.
Oh, I thought you were going to say yourself. Kappa.
Any of them.
Oh, that's so generous.
Boring answer.
Yeah, it's boring.
Boring answer.
Come on,
It's
Uncle.
political answer.
That's what it is.
All right, Dr. Rawiri, this is your turn. Food.
Yes.
Got you.
I like it.
Yeah, it's relevant. Sport.
Rugby. Oh, look. Who's that? That's the world's most famous All Black right there on my... Ooh. Who is that, you ask?
Ian Osborne.
Oh. Okay, Kara.
Celebrity.
Oh, that's George Napier. Double. All right. Kia ora, George.
Explains a
Committed.
lot.
Movie.
The Matrix.
Oh, these are good answers. And Kappa group. Kappa is.
All Pango.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
Pango.
I like this guy.
That's a very good answer.
All right, thanks for playing. We're just going to do a quick explainer for all our viewers because we've got heaps because we're explainer. Yeah, that's the new word. Just tell it.
Go.
So we've been asking our mates on all our social media platforms questions about COVID in general and the vaccinations. And we've had a few questions come through from our Pākeke, but we've decided to keep this area in this space for Rangatahi because as Rangatahi, we need the space to be able to ask legit questions and make the important decisions we need. I repeat, as Rangatahi, we need the space to ask legit questions and make the important decisions we need.
Repeating the promo.
Yeah, just, watch the promo. I'm pretty sure we target Rangatahi, not Rangarua or Rangatoru. So, pity crib. Not tonight, ma'am, okay? Kapai.
Leave my cousin alone.
So we've got a few questions lined up, but if you do have a burning question you really want to ask either of our guests or Tonga, not me, feel free to comment in the comment section, but our moderators, #Auntie Julie Hiruini, #Uncle J Ririkura, if they feel that the agenda of those questions are not to what we intend to provide, you're going to get deleted. So... Koina noa. So remember, as Rangatahi, we need the space to be able to ask legit questions and make the important decisions we need.
Definitely pity cribs talk.
Yeah, totally. Doits. All right. I think we should actually get down to business and ask
get to some questions.
do what our job actually describes. And yeah, we'll just get into the questions. How many bucks?
Let's start off with an easy one. This is I'm gonna go to Dr. Rawiri for this one. How is COVID different from the normal flu?
Well, the truth is that for lots of people it wouldn't be much different at all. So I think especially for Rangatahi that we can see from around the world that they're going to have an illness which is relatively mild, be unwell for, 3 4 or 5 days, maybe a week, something like that. And so that's going to be a very, very, very common experience, but it's for the rest of the people. So for some people, it will be a very bad flu. It will kick your ass. It'll be the worst flu you've ever had. So looking after patients who have had COVID, they say things like, I thought I was dying. It's the worst illness I've ever had. I can't breathe. Now, that's kind of true for young people. And just since we're really concentrating on young people, about 1 in 3 will end up with long COVID. So some of those symptoms might hang around for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months, long COVID. So that's quite different from the flus that we see. So for most of us, we have a flu, might be unwell for 2, 3, 4 days. This is going to be way different from that in how long it is and how bad it is. The other thing to think about is not just young people, but our older people, right? So it might be me, my age, my uncles and aunties, and think about them. And what we know is that COVID will be disastrous for our older people. So I'm from Ngāti Raukawa. I just want to acknowledge that means I've got different experience to a lot of other people. Last year during COVID, we lost 2 really important people for us. The kind of the knowledge and the genealogy and the connections to the marae and the work that they were doing. And the Tahiko brothers were 55 and 60. And so COVID can be catastrophic, devastating for families, for communities. And that's going to be true for us, whānau, from a much younger age compared to Pākehā. So Pākehā's last year, they were 80 years old in nursing homes and COVID killed a few of them. But for us, COVID will be very different. It will be catastrophic. And so that's why we've got to be doing something about it. But yeah, sorry, pretty heavy answer.
No, just a comment. I knew Nigel. And just tragic to hear that him and his brother died and seeing the doco the other week on Moana. Just kāroa ki tana whānau o tira ki koutou o Ngāti Raukawa ki te kaukaro o Patatere. To carry on though.
Yeah, I was going to say, damn, it hit hard.
A heavy lead off.
Yeah, sorry we asked. Well, our second question is, what's the difference between normal COVID and this new Delta Variant Covert?
The most important difference is that it's way more transmissible. So when we started with COVID in sort of February, March last year, if we think of that as the kind of base COVID, and then since then we've got a few mutations, so the variants, we had Alpha COVID, and that was about 60% more transmissible. And then now we've got up to Delta COVID, and that's like another 80% more transmissible. So effectively, that means we're more than twice as transmissible as the COVID we started with. Transmissible is an important issue because if you think about measles, now I want to go back into the measles outbreak, and that was sort of 2018, 2019, and measles got into the country, came into Christchurch, and it was travelling amongst a bunch of Pākehā people, to be honest, and then it went from Christchurch up to the North Shore of Auckland. It was Pākehā people. There's a bunch of Pākehās up in the North Shore of Auckland who are anti-vaxxers and they don't want to get vaccinated, and measles was popping up there. And so I said to my clinic at Papakura, I said, just watch out, everybody, we've got to be on standby. It's going to come towards us, watch this. And week by week by week, measles came across the harbour bridge, it came to South Auckland, and it hit our community. We had 260 kids were in Middlemore Hospital with measles. None of them died. I'm really glad we've got a really good health system, but it's a pretty serious illness, right? And the really sad thing about it is that when we exported measles from South Auckland to Samoa, and in 2019, 62 babies, 62 kids in Samoa died because of measles. Measles is way more transmissible. In South Auckland, essentially, if you walk through Sylvia Park Mall and you got measles, we assume that everybody in the mall has been exposed to measles. So COVID's not that transmissible, but we've gone from COVID to COVID Alpha to COVID Delta. We're halfway towards being that transmissible. So that now we're seeing it with people just walking down the hallway past each other in a hotel. This time we're seeing COVID. If you live in the same house, it looks like everybody gets COVID. Not one or two out of a household. It looks like everybody gets it. So Delta is way harder to control. It's just so transmissible. Over.
Wow.
Do you have any kōrero about that, Uncle Che?
Oh, I'm not just freaking out because at Auntie Missy's whānau home, we had COVID in our house last year, in their house, and because they went to the Bluff wedding. And so if that was Delta this time around, we had someone over 70 and a little baby in that house.
Yeah.
Just freaking out, that's all.
Yeah, it is a bit scary, but lucky we've got Uncle Che and Dr. Rawiri.
Dr. Rawiri backing us.
Yeah. Provide some reassurance. Just looking at Tonga like, oh, you've been bruised.
Yeah, exactly. Like I haven't been kissing, hugging anybody since February of last year.
Well, like,
right?
I can vouch for that.
Hey, true, Shane.
Last year.
And all you're getting from me is bump. Yeah. That's it. Because I tell you, it's a real major issue for us, and it's not over.
Yeah, and because we were both at a hui at Te Papa last year, and so I went up to him and I said, "Bro, so you're still wearing a mask? Should we all be wearing a mask?" And he said, "Yeah, we should be."
Yeah, I think it needs to become like a new things. Yeah, it really is now. Yeah. All right, next question.
I reckon it's going to become the norm.
Okay.
Okay, so since this COVID thing started, we haven't had any cases here in Whanganui. So why do we have to miss out on sports and, stay home from school or work?
Not saying that we actually want to go to school sometimes, but just asking, why do we have to?
Want a reason.
Yeah, why do we have to suffer the consequences?
Well, if you listen to the kōrero, it's easily transmissible. And the other point is, COVID got here because of privilege. People who have the money to travel, they bought it here. And those same people who have the ability to travel can go to Whanganui, can go to Ruatoria, can go to Nelson, wherever, can go to Wanaka. And I think that's the issue, is that because it's so transmissible that we have to all just suck it in.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, okay, we got the answer to that question. It's just easily transmissible.
Yeah.
There's a big word, transmissible. What?
Easy to pass on. Pass on.
Yes.
That's so much easier.
Yeah.
Thumbs it down for me.
All right, next question. Are we just going to keep this English. Are we just going to keep having to go into lockdown? And how is lockdown actually helping? And how do we get back to our normal lives? I think that's really, really big answer.
Yeah.
Like, guys,
I'll start the answer. If I had it my way, we'd be doing it when we need to, rather than trying to beat and get as many, or rather than trying to get as many vaccinated. Because if you look at the numbers as of today, there are now more Maori infected and Maori and PIs. So even though a lot of us are anti this stuff, and it's because I think there's a number of reasons, not just anti-vaccine, but anti-government, anti-authority, and those are different issues. Because I'm anti-authority, I don't trust those mongrels one bit. I participate in it, and you've got these hats which might make people think that I work with this idea of authority, but I've got this hat because I want to fight authority because it's never done anything good for us. But I'm ranting.
Yeah,
I'll pass it over because I'll waffle on.
Look, lockdowns are a really important protection for our whānau. In fact, I'll just be straight up. The number one protection for our whānau right now is lockdown. And so in Auckland, we're at level 3. I wish we were at level 4, but I go around telling people, number one, this alert level is our number one protection. But let's be clear, the number 2 protection is vaccination. And the whole point of the vaccination program is so that we can get out of having to be in alert level 3 or 4. I think we've got a government who's determined to drop us out of alert level 4, alert level 3. It's putting our people at risk. I'm deeply worried about it. But I get it too, because I don't want us to be at lockdown for longer than we need to be. Kids are missing out on school. People's income's affected. It is a hell of a burden. It's really creating a lot of struggle for whānau. But right now, it's an important protection. So I'm really encouraging people to try and do the very best they can with alert level 3. To be honest, it doesn't look great for us having it under control. And I think people have done a really great job of being in alert levels and being locked down and following the rules and scanning and 2 meters at the supermarket, and all that stuff's been just amazing. And the truth is, in my view, no country has beaten Delta. Nobody has.
Yeah.
And so we're giving it a bloody good shot, and we might not get there. This is really hard work. And so that, I'm banging on really a lot about the vaccination program, because that's our second most important protection for whānau.
Yeah, definitely. Because, I think lockdown essentially, that quote, health is wealth. It's almost, if you don't go into lockdown, then you're just putting your wealth at risk. So why even do that?
The challenge though is at a political level, our country can't afford lockdown for much longer financially. And this is where it's going to get hard, is that they may have to make decisions which aren't the decisions that are going to protect us. And this is why I think it's important to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
One of the reasons.
It's a funny thing though, when I trained in med school, we were always trained in the idea that there's limited resources, right? So we've got to make rationing decisions about, resources in healthcare and all of that. Along comes COVID, and they just printed money. They printed $40 billion. Fuck it, make it $60 billion. So suddenly they're printing money, and the imperative, the push behind that was they were afraid that white people were going to die. So they wanted, ICU beds. We haven't got enough ICU beds. Magically, we went from 232 ICU beds. Suddenly, 2 weeks later, we had 750. They could print money. They could make anything happen to protect, the settler colonial white people of the country. Well, I changed my mind. I'm going, hang on a minute. I don't believe in this thing. There's not enough money anymore. I can't believe it. Actually, tell you what, Grant Robertson, print some more money. If we need to be protected, then that's your job. Ka wanatanga, print some more money.
But this is the problem, is that they've protected themselves now.
Yeah.
And so the ones that don't matter, they're just fodder. And that sucks. Because that's us. So that's what I'm talking about, that the country can't afford it, is that there have been too many white people who have been inconvenienced as well as disadvantaged. And so now that things are slowly getting better, they'll then be able to not worry about the fodder.
Yeah.
And that's wrong.
That's us. Yeah, that's wrong.
That's us.
Into the vaccination question.
We're going to move on into our next section of questions, which is not purely based on, but just based on the vaccination itself. So, do you want to start?
Yep, let's start off with our very first one. If they wanted us to trust the vaccine, why didn't they name it something we could pronounce?
Because is it Pfizer with a P or Pfizer with an F? Because when I got my first jab, I sat there waiting to leave, and it took me 15 minutes to figure out how to pronounce it.
I couldn't even read it.
That's Rawadi's question.
Yeah. It's a German company, Pfizer, BioNTech, and AstraZeneca, and Moderna, and Janssen. But hang on, though. You know, in the early days, when the vaccines were first coming out, there was 10 different types of vaccine, right? There's 10 vaccines in the world, and the New Zealand government had purchase agreements for 4 of them, and we ended up with just one, Pfizer, and it's a pretty good one, no doubt about it. But you know, back in the day, people were asking me about vaccines. They said, what's the best vaccine to get? I said, the first one you're fucking offered. The very first one you're offered. Take the first one you get offered. And if they offered me Sputnik 5, the Russian one, I would have taken that. It's pretty good. It's not as good as Pfizer. It's 67% efficacious. It will protect you about 67%. That's a good deal. Efficacious. Yeah, how effective it is.
You couldn't just say effective, doctor.
No, I could have. I should have. I'm sorry. All right.
We high schools are providing that type of English curriculum.
And Taina, I'm getting my my stats from Dr. Rawadi Taunui.
Beautiful.
So I've just seen a question on the comments from Taina where. Yeah, he probably was too.
Well, you know, just to be clear about it, I'd love you fellas to be doctors. I'd love you to get into training, med school, all of that. But don't beat my record. 20 years, nobody's going to beat the record. Just get straight through. Just do it in 6 or 7 years. Come on. Don't muck around. Hurry up.
I mean, personally, I wouldn't want to be at school for 20 years because that's a bit of a long time.
Yeah,
but it's a different type of school, my boy. It's a different type of school. It's a lot of fun.
Now, our next question is, how did they find the vaccine so fast for COVID, but not a cure for cancer?
Oh, interesting way of putting the question. Can I answer both parts of it? The cure for cancer stuff? Okay, so how did we get a vaccine so quick? And there's 2 good reasons. First reason is unlimited money. The drug companies that were working on it had unlimited resources. Governments would say, we'll give you billions and billions and billions of dollars. Get busy and get us a vaccine. So unlimited money. Then the second reason why is because you could get people to enroll in a trial. So enrolling people in a trial usually takes years and years. In the United States of America, they had COVID traveling in the community. People were dying. They said, would you like to be on a trial? 44,000 people signed up within 6 weeks. So that's a record time to get a trial underway. They were able to get the results 5 months later, publish on it. So we had a vaccine ready to go through the regulatory authorities within 9 months. So yeah, it's amazing, but there are special circumstances about why they were able to do it. The second thing is, by the way, we are curing cancer. There's 232 different types of cancers, and most cancers now are survivable. You know, some cancers, 95% of people, we say you survive it. So actually we are doing cancer survival. We are doing, and this technology that we've got for the vaccines will be used for curing cancers as well. Good point. I agree with whoever asked that question. Beautiful question.
The problem is we usually, the problem with us is we usually get diagnosed too late.
Yeah.
Because we don't test early enough.
Well, we don't go to doctors. And doctors sucks. Example is, I've been asked a number of times to be tested, and my doctor would keep judging me. Oh, nah, he wouldn't say these words, but you're too fat. Oh, you're a Maori, so nah, you got no money. And I'd go, I've got an insurance doctor. Still wouldn't put me through, so I changed my doctor in the end.
Yeah.
But that type of stuff, you get treated like shit.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Hey, and I'm on advisory board for Southern Cross. And I'm going, bloody hell. And I can't even get all of this, the things that I need. So I changed my doctor because it's just not good enough. And I'm somebody who can use my words to challenge them. And so I think about all my whānau, all our whānau who can't, they just get whakamā and run away.
Fair enough. Yeah. well, there's a lot that needs to change with our medical systems and the health care systems, but at least we're finding a cure for COVID and cancer. We're off to a good start.
Yeah, good start.
Yeah. Little steps.
Why were we saying that?
Oh yeah. I actually find this a good question, but why were there so many vaccines getting produced for the same reason?
Oh, because of the money. Because there was billions at stake, and lots of those companies have done real well out of producing vaccines. So even the Chinese vaccines, there's 2 Chinese vaccines, 1 Russian vaccine. The Cubans developed the vaccine, and so there's market for all of those, no doubt about it. And Cubans, they're fantastic at producing vaccines. Let's be clear. You two are young enough to remember meningococcal disease. So, 20 years ago, we were having people die from meningococcal, and we had a particular kind of meningococcal disease. It was meningococcal New Zealand B strain. And it wasn't much of it anywhere else in the world, but we had it, and we spent a few years trying to figure out how to deal with it. Meningococcal will kill you. Let me be straight up. If you get meningococcal, you've got 2 choices. You get antibiotics or you die. It's that simple. Hang on a minute, we could build a vaccine. So we built a vaccine. And the Cubans built a vaccine, and the New Zealand government got pressurised not to buy it from Cuba because of the political relationships, got pressurised by the Americans to buy it from an American manufacturer of it. I've been to Cuba, I've been to their research place. Yeah, it's rubbish, but they kept it, and they said to us, if you ever have a problem with the vaccine you've got, you come back. We've still got our vaccine ready for you if you ever need it. And so this stuff, I'm trying to put it into a kind of political context around the globe. Yes, vaccines are political. United States is ready to vaccinate everybody 3 times there. In Africa, we can't get 20% of the population vaccinated yet. Now, why are we still getting different strains of COVID? Because it's traveling in communities where millions and millions and millions of people are getting it. The virus has got opportunity to mutate. If we really want to squash coronavirus, then we have to work with the whole world to get the whole world vaccinated. If we're in this, 5 million of us, actually we're in this, all of us, the whole world. Te ao whānui, ko tātou katoa.
There's a question here, Rawiri, I can see in our comments. Who here has completed the due diligence on the creation of coronavirus 1998, SARS-CoV creation and under the US parent by Dr. Fauci and CDC? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, no, not a lot about it. So you know how you said before that you're a bit suspicious of the government and you're a bit suspicious about authority, and we can see conspiracy theories and we don't trust the government, but that person's got a conspiracy theory that I don't have. I've got some conspiracy theories about the government, but that's not one of mine. We know that coronaviruses have been around for a while. The first time I was doing work on pandemics, I was down at the Ministry of Health, and I had Mike Smith interviewed me. And so we're talking about pandemics and stuff. But at the time, that was SARS and MERS. So the SARS virus in whatever it was, 2006 or something like that, that was a coronavirus. But luckily for us, and they used some of these technologies to build vaccines for it, but it didn't travel so far. So we saw SARS disappear, and those drug companies lost a lot of money. Sorry about it. Anyway.
See, and I think this is one of the things. If you look at everybody all of the key people who have fought the authorities from Te Ao Māori, the key ones, if not all of the key ones, are all saying get vaccinated. And I think that's a key thing, is it? And they're not being bought out by the government. They're not being suckered in. They just know that order is the most important thing. And they will still be protesting tomorrow and fighting with the government. You look at Hone, you look at Mike Smith, they're hardcore promoting because they know the impact it will have if it goes out everywhere.
Right, shall we move on to our next question?
Yeah,
All right. So this one's pretty general, but Could you be specific, Dr. Rawiri, about what the vaccination actually does? So we know that when you get your vaccinations, that's helping you get more protected from the virus, but we're not.
You create antibodies.
Oh, you do know.
Right.
Yeah, right, Tonga.
I know some stuff about vaccination.
Beautiful. So I'll try and include antibodies in my answer. So I've been vaccinated, and the Pfizer vaccine has got messenger RNA in it, messenger RNA. And so messenger RNA is like a recipe. And so it's a set of instructions. I get an injection in my arm, and the mRNA goes into some of my cells, and it gives my cells instructions to build spike protein. So we all know there's a kind of a virus, and it's a round thing like that. The spike proteins that we've seen in all those diagrams. So the messenger RNA tells my cells, make some spike proteins. So my cells make some spike proteins, and my immune system notices spike proteins, and it forms antibodies to spike proteins. Aha, my immune system can fight spike proteins. So I have another injection, same thing. Now I'm quite good at fighting spike proteins. My immune system's definitely primed. If COVID comes along, my immune system, my antibodies are going to fight anything with spike proteins on them. We're kind of lucky with the Pfizer one because spike proteins are one of the most stable parts of this virus. We're talking about mutants and variant strains of coronavirus. The spike protein has been pretty stable over time. So my immune system's going to spot spike proteins, boom shakalaka, immune response, antibodies. That's how it works. Do you want me to explain any of the other vaccines?
No, but I had a little side question. Is the coronavirus called that because the spike proteins look like a crown and the Latin word for crown is corona? Yeah! I feel smart! Yes! Validation!
I don't know if
totally
you
see your mother going like
she
this right
literally
now.
wrote it down. She literally wrote it down and showed me.
I just had to share it. I had to share it.
Coronavirus got nothing to do with beer. It's about the Latin. So we're speaking Latin tonight, people. Kia ora. Ko tātou reo Māori.
You other languages.
All right, and to lead on from that, how effective is the vaccine? It's a pretty
response.
Effective. So, and I won't mention efficacious at all, but how effective it is it's about 95% effective. It is now it's about 96% effective against the original COVID, about 95 or 93% effective against the Alpha variant, and it might be, I don't know, 90% effective against Delta. So, still pretty bloody good, I've got to say. But what do I mean by effective? What do I mean by effective? Aha, good question. So I'm your GP, and I'm looking after 1,500 people who are all on the show tonight, watching, listening, kia ora, 1,500. And what it means is that if I get all of you vaccinated and COVID comes along, then most of you will not get very ill, and most of you will not go to hospital, and most of you will not die. It's that effective on those sorts of things. You're less likely to get COVID. You're less likely to become severely ill. You're less likely to be hospitalised. You're less likely to die. As your GP, that's a deal. That's what I want for all of you. I want all my patients not to die. All right. But I'm not promising you that it means you won't get COVID. I'm just saying it's less likely that you'll get COVID. And if you do get COVID, you won't die from it. So that's when I'm talking about 95% effective, that's the sorts of things I'm worried about, hospitalizations and death.
Yeah, so essentially, are you saying that when you get the vaccine, you're not immune to coronavirus, but your chances of getting it and falling ill is lessened?
Yeah, which is kind of what I mean by immune to it. You're not going to die from it. You probably won't get it. You're way less likely to get it. So a few of us will get it. That's true. Yeah. But we won't die. We probably won't even pass it on. So that's the sort of thing I mean by effective.
All right, come on. Do you want to ask our next question? Oh, Uncle Chade, did you have anything to say?
Yeah. In the future,
He's
Oh,
always
dang
got
it.
we should be getting you two to interview everybody because I'm learning heaps from this myself.
So are we.
Yeah, same. So are we. Next one.
Oh yeah, there's actually a question I've been asked as well, but why would we need the vaccine when we have rongoa Māori?
Goodbye.
Okay. Yep.
So I can start that and nobody can.
Go on then. Kapai.
Nobody can then whakatika mai.
Whoa.
Bit of a debate.
So this ngarara comes from somewhere else. And so the rongoa for that will come from somewhere else. Our rongoa can help, but it can't do everything. And I think that's how I've been taught. There are some who might disagree with that, but it's about the fact that, my McDonald's doesn't come from here, and there's a lot of other things that we now eat which don't come from here originally, and our rongoa will give us strength, but it won't take us the whole place.
Straight up, that's a good answer, right? That's so good. I tell you that back in the day, I had a patient of mine, and she had really bad ass diabetes, and when I got to know her, and anyway, so the nurse said, "Oh, great, Māori GP, you go and talk to her. She doesn't want to take medicines." And so I met with this woman, and she said, "Look, I don't want to take Pākehā medicines." And I said, "Oh, sorry about it, but you've got a Pākehā disease. Diabetes is a Pākehā disease. We never had diabetes before the arrival of Pākehā. Before colonisation, we didn't have diabetes. You think we've got any traditional medicines for diabetes? We don't. We didn't have to treat it." And so I think it's kind of similar. That's what Che's saying about the coronavirus. We don't have any traditional medicines to prevent it or to treat it, but actually we do have some traditional medicines which a lot of people are going to find really helpful if they ever got coronavirus, that illness, and were unwell. Of course, yeah, there's going to be some rongoa that'll help. Yep.
And I've just seen over the last couple of weeks the top rongoa, as I know it, for te ao Māori. The problem is we eat it with fat. So puha juice, you make that into a waiwai, not with the pork bones, but just by itself as a waiwai. It's one of the best immunity strengtheners that you can have. That and the other top rongoa is wai mata, wai Māori. If you have those two all the time, that will help build your immunity up. And everybody talks about kawakawa, but everybody talks about kawakawa, but actually puha juice, as was taught by Koro Paul, that's the strongest immunity strengthener.
Okay, so puha and wai Māori. Write that down.
Yeah, good to know that.
Without the fat.
Yes.
Okay, without the fat.
Oh.
Our next question: do you think at the age of 12, you personally would be able to comprehensively decide whether to get the vaccine or not, and why?
Nah, well, each person will be different. There are some 12-year-olds who will be able to comprehend it. There'll be some 30-year-olds who won't be able to comprehend it. But, everyone's different, and you've just got to have that kōrero.
Yeah.
I'm shit scared of needles. And
So
yeah, so me and Te Kanawa are shit scared of needles, and Auntie Missy and Hene, sweet ass. But me and son went, and you've just got to talk as a family, and you've also got to make sure you don't put your own fears into someone else.
I like that. You can't put your fears into it. Because especially with Māori whānau and Pacifica whānau, when your own personal opinions influence that of your other family members who might have different opinions,
especially the younger ones.
Yeah, especially younger, like rangatahi, especially like if mum said no, then no. Mum
Like,
says
you know,
yes, it's probably
I
still
know,
no.
I know none of Vera's watching this, and so she spoke to all of her mokos, and yeah, that's the other thing is, you know, nanas and papas, they have a lot of influence, probably more influence than parents.
Agreed.
Definitely.
Shout out to Vera. She goes, yep, I'm loving that. Good call.
Matsurawari, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, like as a GP, I'm working with kids who are 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, and I'm actually starting to have the conversation with them and say, at age 16, formally, you definitely have the permission, the authority to make decisions about your own health. And so I want to introduce that at a younger age and get used to it and start talking about it. And so if a young one comes in with their mum, you know, just say to them, at some point you're going to be coming in to see me on your own. I really like that you come with your mum, because that's a beautiful thing that you can talk about, you know, whatever it is they come in for. You can predict what some of those things they're coming in for are. You know, it might be a sprained ankle, but it might be a urinary tract infection or whatever. So coming in with mum is a good thing. And it's okay if you come in without mum, because one day I need to talk to young people about contraception and stuff like that. So we've got to build that relationship, and it can't just suddenly drop like the day you turn 16, suddenly we're going to do. No, we've got to build up on that. We've got to have those conversations. And so I love the idea that 12-year-olds are part of the conversation about vaccination. That's a good thing.
Yeah, cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Just one other point with puha juice is throughout the year. Whereas I see somebody talking about kumaraho, and kumaraho is seasonal. So, yeah, I know what you're laughing about.
Well, I'd just like to thank our sponsors, and tonight's show is brought to you by Puha Juice.
Yeah, well, Kitahi Nurseries, they do puha.
All right, next question.
I think we need the next question. We're too busy on puha juice.
That's all right. It's going to keep coming back. You heard, Uncle. It's yearly. It's yearly.
All year round. Why do you think people are quick to judge everyone who's decided to get vaccinated, but are quick to feed their bodies with everything that's in takeaways and fast foods?
Well,
Why don't they just have puha juice?
in 20. Shut up, you. And in the beginning of 2019, most of these people were probably giving their kids vaccines. But there has been a movement, a sinister movement, that's doing other things. I'm not going to judge people if they don't get vaccinated, but I'm worried about how we're going to look after each other. And people have their own choices to make, but we've got to just work out how we can look after each other. And when you live in Ohakune or Waima, it's a long way to services.
Yeah.
You know, 1 hour is a long way to services. You can work the rest out.
I like what you're saying about thinking about the vaccination rates a couple of years ago. Like up until December of last year, I was working at Papakura Marae, and awesome practice. We had an awesome team. We had Māori doctors, we had Māori nurses, we had Māori leadership. And for since 2017, we've reached all of the national health targets. We achieved the national health targets for immunisations at 8 months, immunisations at 24 months, smoking cessation, cardiovascular disease risk assessment, and then the hardest one was getting up to the 80% target for cervical smears. But we got there, and we held on to that performance continuously for 18 months. So in my view, it's the best practice in New Zealand. No other general practice I know of in the country achieved all of the national health targets continuously for 18 months. So, you know, shout out to Papakura Marae, deadly, and Māori clinical leadership. You know, Māori doctors like Matita Harwood and my mate Marty Davis. He passed away on the first lockdown. We went into lockdown. He passed away that night. We had to manage tangihanga during COVID. You know, he was kind of like, fuck it, I'm out of here. But he died of bowel cancer, and he should have been picked up in a bowel screening. See, we've got a racialised health system. We've got a health system that isn't delivering to our people. This is a long story. I'm telling a long story. But what I wanted to say was, imagine that we had 95% of our kids were vaccinated, 8 months and 24 months, 95%. We can do this. Don't give me any bullshit about vaccine hesitancy. It's not there. We got vaccine acceptance. That's what we've got. We just need a good health system to make the offer. We need a good health system to invite us. We need a good health system to inspire us to get the vaccines. And when we get a good health system, we engage. We're up for it. Yes, give it to me. All right. And so there's a lot of my patients who just want to have an opportunity to have a talk about it. They got some questions about the vaccine. They got some questions about COVID. They got some questions about their medicines. Oh, is it okay? I'm on this medicine, that medicine. And they just want to have a decent conversation. And as soon as you have a decent conversation, people go, all right, so what do you reckon? I go, yep, I think that's a really good thing. It's going to protect you. It's going to protect your whānau. It's going to protect your community. They go, yep, I'm in, sweet. So I expect that we will get 95% of our population vaccinated if we do a good job of inviting, inspiring, reducing the barriers. That's us. Let's do it.
If they let us look after ourselves, because at the moment they're still being paternalistic and trying to do it in a way which just doesn't attract us. They're dumb. And they're wasting our money as taxpayers.
Yeah, like who gives a vaccine that we can't even pronounce? Of course, I'm not going to take to it.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest reasons
for
you.
It is.
Can't pronounce it, so I'm not going to take it.
Can't pronounce it, so I'm not getting it.
It starts with an F, all right? Hey, look, I can see in the comments, there's this beautiful question from Leanne Tapania. Can we go to that? You're right. Okay. She goes, how often would booster shots be required? And I think, oh, that's a great question. That's a deadly question. And I'll just be straight up, I don't know, because I think there's 3 different ways of going for it. It could be that Pfizer, spelt with an F, is going to have shot 1, shot 2, and a booster. I think that's possible, and people are talking about it and thinking about it. Yep, that's possible. I get that. It's possible that we end up with an annual shot, just like flu. And so, you know, we get through this vaccination program and then next minute it's going to be with your flu vaccination. Right now, I know that we can do both together. You know, when we first started the vaccination program, you had to wait this many weeks after your flu vax before you have your COVID, or if you have your COVID, then you wait 3 weeks to have your flu, blah, blah, blah. That's gone. Don't worry about it. If you want flu and COVID together, boom shakalaka, have them together, no problem. I think we're going to see a time when they say to us, actually, we've got the flu shot and the COVID in one injection. Nice, like it, quite good, quite easy.
Both out.
And then there's another possibility is which we'll go to mix and match. And, you know, before I was offering to talk about other vaccines, but let me just talk about the AstraZeneca one just for a minute. And I can tell from some of the international studies that having an AstraZeneca followed by a Pfizer, that looks pretty good. It looks a bit better than just having Pfizer. And so I'm interested in that. So could we, instead of having a Pfizer booster shot, have a different vaccine as a booster shot? It's possible. I don't know. Depends on the government buying it. Depends on a whole lot of things, whatever. So the real answer is I don't know, but I like your thinking and good question. Thanks, Leanne.
Yeah, kill her.
All right, so to follow on from Leanne's question, where is it? Will the vaccine turn me into a zombie in a couple of years?
Because personally, I'd like to know. See if I have to set up.
all of those comments, you know. Imagine this is a spoon. They are exactly that. They are exactly that. So.
Yeah, but it's a fun way of asking the question, is there long-term side effects? All right, so can we just talk about side effects for a couple of minutes? The side effects that most people get, I get the injection in the shoulder. The most common side effect is pain where I got the injection. It happens about, 5 or 10% of the time. The next most common thing is people get a sore shoulder. The whole shoulder's kind of sore for a day or two. That's pretty common, 5 or 10%. Some people faint, but that's just because they're afraid of needles. That's okay. Don't worry about that one. Six people per million end up with anaphylaxis. Big word. It means severe allergic reaction. It's pretty rare. 6 per million. 6 people per million will have anaphylaxis. And that's why we always do vaccinations at a site where we've got a nurse who can do adrenaline. Because the treatment for anaphylaxis is adrenaline, followed by adrenaline, followed by adrenaline, followed by adrenaline. We just use adrenaline until they've recovered, all right? Just saying, it's pretty easy. And nobody has died from anaphylaxis after Pfizer. So it's a side effect. It's important that we know how to manage it and we can do it safely. There's one other side effect worth talking about, which is myocarditis, and that's inflammation of the heart muscle. It happens about 10 times per million. It's mostly in men, mostly young men. We've had one case of it in this country. So pretty rare, and almost all of those recover. Our case in New Zealand didn't. Our case was a 53-year-old woman, so very, very rare to see myocarditis in that, and she didn't recover from her myocarditis, just telling the truth. So there's all the side effects. Now, if the question is, could there be a side effect that comes in 10 years' time or 20 years' time? And obviously, I can't be 100% certain, but I'm really, really confident that there won't be. And the reason for that is, if you think about all of our vaccines, we've got measles, mumps, rubella, we've got a Zostavirus, we've got a Novavirus, we've got 10 different vaccines that we do in our regular vaccination program, and none of them have a side effect that comes up 10 years later. None of them have a side effect that comes up 20 years later. So this vaccine, I don't expect it to be any different in that regard. There's almost no chance it's going to have a side effect that comes up 10 or 20 years later. Zombie or not, I think you're going to be fine.
And I think some rangatahi, especially wahine, we'd like to know is there an effect that the vaccine has in making wahine infertile? Like, can you not get pregnant if you get the vaccine? Yes or no?
Oh, no. It's all good. And we know that. See, again, we can get the studies that tell us that's okay. So when I told you 44,000 people were enrolled in that trial for Pfizer, sweet, there were pregnancies during that, and there's babies born since that time. And then you look at Portugal. So Portugal's got a really highly vaccinated population, and guess what? Their birth rate went up. Right, and it's probably because of lockdown. A lot of people were watching TV. A lot of people were at home, so you know what happened. But I'm just saying, people are fertile. Don't worry about it. It's all good. We're safe on that one.
Sorry.
Or
So
they
you got
didn't
two
watch
teenagers,
TV.
bit immature.
Sorry.
They didn't watch TV.
No, yeah, they stopped watching TV. Turn the TV off. Fire G's going, okay, what reassurance can you give to pregnant mama? And I think, yeah, that's a beautiful question. I think it's really important that we've got good information and we can see the safety studies and the data for pregnant women, that it's really safe. And it's a beautiful thing that we can protect the mama and the baby. So I'm absolutely encouraging pregnant women to get the vaccine. And if you ask me when to get the vaccine, immediately at your first opportunity is the best time to get it.
Yeah. Get in there, Bono.
Well, next question. For the New Zealanders who don't want to get vaccinated, how do you suppose we support them?
Oh, like Shade. Let's hand it back to Shade, because they're our whānau. We're not going to beat up on them. We're not going to harass them. We're not going to lock them out of something. We're going to love them. They're our whānau. I want everybody to be vaccinated, but I'm not going to beat up on whānau who don't want to. That's okay.
And there's two parts to it. So firstly, there are some who for some medical reason, they might not be able to get it at the moment.
Yeah.
And then there are others who just have chosen not to. And so we've got to work through that, but they also need to be mindful that them choosing not to may also make things difficult if we're ever into a lockdown again.
Yeah.
You know, and if it gets even more contagious than Delta. So we've just got to find ways to work through it and still look after each other. You know,
Yeah,
whānau is still whānau, but you can also have different conversations with whānau.
Yeah. I think our way of supporting one another and like New Zealanders that don't want to get the vaccine is just opening up that conversation really and just talking about it.
Yeah. Because I've had someone, because I was talking to someone, and I've had someone say that getting the vaccine could potentially make you get COVID. What's your thoughts on that, Dr. Rawiri?
Yeah, the getting vaccinated, you can't get COVID from the vaccination. But as I was talking about before, if all of us get vaccinated, some of us will still get COVID, right? So it's not perfect, that it's going to make us all, bulletproof against COVID. No, some people will still get COVID, but they won't die from it. They won't end up in hospital. That's the important thing. And the reason why I know that you can't get COVID from the vaccine is because the vaccine doesn't have COVID in it. Yeah, there's no COVID in the vaccine. There's an instruction set which tells your cells how to make spike protein. Your cells make some spike protein. Next minute, you build antibodies to spike protein. Woohoo! Antibodies will. There's your immune system. Boom.
Let's go.
It's good to know.
Nice. Our next question is, when the country or like New Zealanders begin to fade in numbers of interest of getting the vaccine, what's going to happen after that? Are we still going to push for the vaccine? And like, what happens if people just don't budge? Will the vaccine become a compulsory thing or mandatory?
Well, that's a political debate, and so the medical professionals will provide their information, and fortunately, it's 2 more years before another election. Because if we're going into an election again, it could be used as a political football, and that's not helpful. We've just got to make sure we get protected. That's the most important focus. But there's challenges with it. But you've just got to look at what's happening already. There are going to be vaccination passports. It's just a matter of time. You can see traveling around the world, they're going to be expecting you to have certain things. It's a bit like when you go to somewhere with malaria, you got to show that you've had your malaria jab or pills, and so that you don't die over there and are an expense to them.
So I'm with Jay on it. It's a political decision, and could it be made mandatory? I'm going no, and I've got a little bit of a yes to be honest with you about it. So there's no way we're going to make vaccinations mandatory in this country. We've got this kind of long history of a democratic right about that, and so some people won't get vaccinated, and that's okay. So what's the yes about? There are some people who are going to have to make a hard decision, right? And so we've already seen that with our airport border workers. We see it in clinics. So in my clinic, the rule is you must be vaccinated, right? And in all of health services, we're going to end up with something like that. It says, if you work in the front line, you must be vaccinated. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, I'm not going to put you in harm's way. If you're not vaccinated and you come and work in the front line in clinic, COVID is going to get you, and it's going to be pretty harmful to people. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to put you in harm's way. You got to be vaccinated to work in front line. So that's front line in clinic. But what about frontline police? I think they should be vaccinated. What about frontline prison staff, correction staff? I think prison staff should be vaccinated. That should be a rule. If you don't want to get vaccinated, you can't do that job. That's fair enough. So there's a few people who are going to feel the kind of the hard end of that, but I think we've got to do that because it's about protecting them and protecting our community. But mostly, out there in Joe Public, out there working in I don't know, the supermarket, I guess. But even in the supermarkets, they're going to ask you, we don't want you working in the front line. If you could get COVID, it'll beat you up, man. We don't have enough sick leave for you to get COVID. But we're not going to force people to get vaccinated. That's true.
There's a couple of questions around from two of them. One around how safe are our babies that can't get the vaccine, and what about our babies who already have a huge amount of jabs in a short period of 5 years? Any comments on those two parts?
So COVID can affect babies as well. It's just way less likely. But we know from Fiji there was a 1-year-old baby that died from COVID. So I don't want to say it doesn't happen. It does happen, and it's incredibly distressing for a family to lose a baby to COVID. I'm definitely interested, once we've got safety data for the 5 to 11-year-olds, that we get our young kids vaccinated. I'm definitely interested, and I think we will get there some early next year for the 1-year-olds and up to get vaccinated. I like the concern that Jaleesa's got about that's a lot of vaccines, it's true, but all of those vaccines have to go through a pretty rigorous program of testing their data to make sure that each vaccine is safe. And so all of the vaccines that we've got are safe. And so I'm okay with bringing that in. Personally, I'm okay with it. I think it's going to be really important in terms of protecting whole whānau that our kids are protected by vaccination as well.
Good boy. And one final point. Can you see James's question, Davide? Are you happy with the amount of research that's been conducted over the last year and a bit?
So the trials that show that it works, I think those have been really good. They've been really big trials, impressive in that regard. And then the other part that I'd say about the amount of research is there is a lot of research that has to carry on. So in New Zealand, we've got, it's called the Centre for Adverse Reactions to Medicines. So every medicine that we have, if there's any side effect to it, we have to report it to the Centre for Adverse Reactions to Medicines. And so all of our vaccinations are considered medicines, and so we need to make sure that we do a really good job of collecting all of the data about any adverse reactions to the medicines. So I'm never going to be satisfied in a sense that says that's enough, we can stop the research. Actually, I think we need to be always involved in good research that helps us understand vaccinations, side effects. I'm interested in research. I've been involved in a bit of those things, but also in the one about long COVID. So COVID, its long-term effects for us is important research. I think we've got to do research about the impact of COVID on the education. You know, what's the education impact on young people because of COVID and lockdowns and all of that stuff? So I think I want more research, yes. Over.
Because have you two got exams?
Not Tonga, but I did.
I'm finished, kura.
Tonga's old now.
Yeah.
He's a rangarua. No, yeah, I think personally the impact that COVID has had on the education system and going to school, being a student alone is like just, it's so new and so different, and it's kind of crazy to think that we just kind of carried on with it and we just adapted so well to it. I think, like, especially for Wanganui High School, we've adapted so well to still being able to learn in a COVID environment. So yeah, research into that would be cool, especially on like mental health in COVID, because, you know, regardless, there's still going to be issues and effects on the mental health of rangatahi, anyone really. So
Everyone.
yeah.
Well, and I think that's the thing is that, no, because I was part of the team for Protect Our Whakapapa last year, and so we had a meeting every night at 9:30 to see what was the next kōrero to help inspire us. And we need hope, we need inspiration, and we need to just love each other, because we're hating on each other so much. And one of my worries about socials these days is it's becoming a form of makutu.
Yeah,
People
totally.
are abusing each other so much that it gets other people sick.
Yeah.
And we've just got to send more love out there. It's not helping us at all.
Totally. Are there any other questions our guest would like to answer from the audience?
Just one point from me is last year, I spoke with Rawiri pretty early on in the lockdown, because I developed some protocols around tangihanga. I had no permission to do it. I just did it, and I did it because I knew how many of our urupa were full from the influenza and from other pandemics that had happened, and I was just freaking my hole really, and I was going, shit, we if we don't take this seriously. And so I developed this stuff, and I haven't had a chance to publicly acknowledge Rawiri and the Ropu Whakakaupapa Uruta, because you know yourself, bro, and Elena and the others, all of you have done an amazing job. And if only the government would listen to you fellas more, it would be way safer.
So a couple of questions ago, Uncle Che, you brought up the vaccination passports. So what, like this is for both of you, what are the passports? What are these vaccination passports? And if we don't have one, does that mean we can't go to like certain events or festivals like One Love, or is there somewhere around it?
So they don't exist at the moment. But, you know, when I was living in London, we had this little, it wasn't a formal passport, but you had this thing that, because I traveled all around the world, you had this thing where you just carry what jabs you got, so that when you went into different countries, you just show them. So it was an optional thing, but you got through customs quicker if you had it.
Fair enough.
And so there's no passport at the moment, but if you just need to listen to key cues as the Prime Minister and Dr. Bloomfield are sharing things, and then also other things that are happening around the world, potentially a matter of time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, I'm old. You can tell I'm old. I'm old enough to remember when to travel to some countries you had to have proof that you had yellow fever immunisation. And so nobody has to do that now. But, okay, so we've got COVID. And we're going to, if you go to Australia, they're going to say, have you had 2 jabs COVID? All right, great, you're in. Cook Islands has already said it. The Cook Islands has said, if you're not double vaccinated, you can't come here. And I'm with them. I love them. They're right. They're totally right. Protect their people. And to be clear, they're 97% vaccinated. 97% of them are vaccinated. That's our target. We've got to beat the Cook Islands at rugby, at league, and at vaccination.
Well, and that's why I didn't go to the Cooks, because I didn't want to take my germs over there until I know that they're vaccinated and that I've been vaccinated too. Just because you look at Fiji and what's happened there, you look what we did, what we did to Samoa.
And so the other part of the question is, are you going to have a COVID passport to go to One Love? And because I'm a GP, I can tell you about a Moxil and I can tell you about vaccines, but, you know, I go to One Love just like you guys, so I'll wait and see. And, you know, and if you have to, then get vaccinated, my people.
Ongoing.
Because I'm old enough.
Hopefully.
Because there'll be a lot of love.
Cue in the cricket sounds.
Hey.
Wow. That was actually really cool. I've learned so much, and
really interesting as well.
yeah. How do I wear that?
Like, don't ask me.
Well, let's hope your brother, as I noticed your brother's commented and it's made him think.
Yeah.
That's
Sophia.
dangerous. That's very dangerous.
Hey, I feel like we're coming towards the end, and one thing that I wanted to talk about, there's a comment in the chat there that's about thinking about what's going on in Auckland. And for me, it's a really critical moment. It's a really tough place to be. I want to be clear about what Che said. We've got to love our people. And what's happening now is there's quite a lot of conversations kind of beating up on the families that have got COVID travelling. I want to be clear, this crisis is not of our making, and this crisis comes to us 5 years of housing crisis, 5 years since I started treating people who were living in cars. And so people living in garages, we've got people living in boarding houses and emergency motel accommodation. And it's crap. It's really, really wrong. And if COVID gets into those settings, it's really, really hard to manage. That's what we're seeing now. It's not our people's fault. This has happened to us. This is a really hard place to be. And I think we've got to be really good and love our people well and get vaccinated and have conversations that support our whānau. So for me to be invited to your show tonight, just aroha. Ka nui taku mihi aroha. Kia kōrua, kia koutou. Thank you so much. I love your work. This is really good. You know, whānau, let's protect our whakapapa. Kia ora.
Yeah. Oh, well, no, we'd just like to tuku mihi to you, Dr. Rawari.
All right.
Not every day we meet a doctor that's been kicked out of uni. It's like so cool, and he actually knows his stuff. Like, whoa.
That much education, mate, has done wonders.
20 years with reliability. No, well, yeah, we are sort of heading towards the end of our...
But before we ask Uncle Che to wrap up, are there any questions you two would like to ask us?
And please don't ask me how to spell Pfizer.
Nobody? You got any questions for these two?
Well, the spelling test will be efficacious, and just type it into the chat. That'll be good, and see how you go. I guess what I think we have is that your generation is going to get us through this. It's your generation believes that they can solve these problems, coronavirus, epidemics, pandemics, climate crisis, all of that stuff. And I'm with you. I think your generation can save us. So I've got no questions. I just got admiration and love for you all. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Rawari. No reira, e te iwi, o tira, e te rangatira Rawiri, tēnei me i atu ana kia koe mō i wakaro nui mai ki te tono a enei rangatahi. Kia uru mai, me te rawe o ngā kōrero, ātakihi o ngā kōrero. I just want to send a big mihi to you, Rawiri, as our manuhiri, as our rangatahi from home try and find their solutions. And if anything that I've learnt from this is you fellas need to be asking the questions more often, because sometimes when we ask the questions, we get stuck in political answers and technical answers, and you just take the piss out of us and bring us back to earth, and it's beautiful.
You're welcome.
He's gonna kick me off.
Just a big mihi. Rawiri, e rere ana ngā mihi ki koutou ki tāmaki makaurau. O ti rā koutou ki te kāinga, kōruatai, ki tō tātou awa. Me ngā mate o te wā, kei te kite atu, i ngā ingoe mātaki ana. And just want to send a heap of love to the whānau who, with Auntie Ree being cremated today, and everyone else that's going through hard times, but also to those who are also celebrating new babies, heaps of love. Tēnei mihi atu ana. Nō reira, kia whakairea ki ngā kupu ki te tāhu nui, orangi nui e tūnei, e rongo o kairea kia kirunga ai. Purutia te tauru o te rangi kia tīna, kia oena, ka toka te mana waora, e kei o mai te mana waora, turuturu o iti waka maua kia tīna, tīna, tāi. Kia ora tātou.
And before we send you guys off, we got a bit of a taonga for you.
Yeah. So, as part of our job, because this is our job now.
We're big kids now.
We'll be sending you guys some gifts. That's your very own Tukua face mask here. What else do we have in here?
We got some scorched almonds. That's the right way up.
Scorched almonds for you both, mainly for Hene and Te Kanawa uncle.
Yeah.
because you're on Puha say Uncle. And we even got some tukua mugs.
With
And
some
some
goodies
chocolates.
inside. With some goodies inside.
So good. Beautiful.
So yeah, these will be, what is it, delivered?
Dr. Rawari, you'd probably get it in the mail.
Like next year.
Yeah, when it gets to you. And Uncle Che, you'd be lucky to get
I'm
it
at Ranana on Tuesday. I'm at Ranana on Tuesday, so send it up with somebody to Ranana.
Yeah.
No, post it, because then I'll have to share.
Yeah. And if there are some scorched almonds missing, it was Tonga. All right, whānau, I think
Love you, fellas.
we're done here. Like, yes.
Time to wrap up.
Time to hand over to Lafo.
Well, ka kite wānau, thank you all for joining our Rangatahi Takeover live Q&A session with Dr. Rawari Jensen and Uncle Che Wilson. And this is me and Tonga signing off. So, ka kite.
The gift that keeps